If you're listening to this episode the day it came out, it is the longest day of the year, the summer solstice. Today is a day of many celebrations. I believe in Wicca, they refer to this holiday as Litha. I'm not entirely up on my Wiccan lore as a practicing druid, but it is a day of many celebrations. It is a day that quite a few are going to be calling for prosperity. For me, I am thinking a lot about Manannán mac Lir and Amergin. So let's talk about the summer solstice and have a little party today as we walk together down Creation's Path. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and shush off to the dog duck.
Today, we are going to be celebrating the summer solstice, which is in many ways something outside of the tradition that I practice. Brian would agree with that as well. It is a traditional neo-druid holiday that was also adopted by the Wiccans and has become a celebration for pagans around the world. But within the Irish context, which is what we generally practice from, they did not really celebrate the sun in this way. We have the cross-quarter days, the 4 fire festivals that we tend to connect with a bit more. And even from the Christian perspective, there really wasn't an emphasis on midsummer. This is something that we have been incorporating more and more into our practice over the years, but in a way, it still feels a little foreign, at least to me. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss a thing.
I definitely agree with feeling a little disconnected for this holiday. It doesn't resonate as strongly with me like the cross-quarter holidays being the start of the season or like Christmas or Easter, those kind of celebrations. We've been working on incorporating it into our practice, partially because out of the value of punctuating one's year, it really helps to take moments to pause and be aware of what's going on in general. And in more specific, just as we journey through the year itself, it's really valuable to pause and take stock of where you are in the year. For that reason, I've been putting in the effort to figure out how this does fit in and how I can add value to it so that it resonates more with myself and with us together. I felt it was very important to at least take time. Today is a happy summer solstice. It is the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere and the shortest day in the Southern Hemisphere. It's important to be mindful of these things, to remember there's a large portion of the world's population that is in the exact opposite state we're in right now. They're facing the darkest, the longest night, and we're celebrating the brightest, longest day. For that reason, I'm like, yeah, we should definitely party. Also, love an excuse for party.
In the Druidic tradition, this is referred to as Alban Hefin, which I believe I'm pronouncing it properly. This is the light of the shore. And that symbolism and connection to the shore makes me think about Manannán mac Lir. He is the great boatman. He helps to guide us through the other world, both in death and in our journeying, and is a very powerful, useful way for us to get to know in navigating the other world safely. If we go into Ross Nichols' book of Druidry, he refers to this holiday actually as Alban. In his note on it, he says, the eternally moving circle of water around the earth's shores, boundaries of earth and sea, and of 2 halves of the year. Main symbols, verbane and verbena, the plant of sight. Other symbols, flowers, leaves, and mead, the hospitable feast, the giving back of that which is freely given, mercy, truth, and love come from the highest sun, the golden cloak. That's all that we have in here. We have its pairing with the winter. Beyond that, one more reference to it, the high point of light, the clearing of sight, the male sun festa. And yeah, that's about it. So even here, we don't have a lot of notes to connect it really into the tradition. In fact, his note makes some reference again to Angus. I could see Angus being associated with this holiday. I feel like I have to be very careful that I don't associate too much with Angus. Angus and I have a interesting relationship in that I work primarily with care, but Angus does show up in my work quite a bit. When I think of the name of this holiday, I really am thinking about those times of journey. And in that context, I guess Angus really would play a part in this. When you think of the climax of his story with Care, we have them transforming into the swans for a year and flying off together. That as he runs towards her, his outstretched arm turns into a wing and they both turn into swans and fly off together. That's really where my brain goes. I've talked about this before. I don't get the gendering of the holidays. I see this in a lot of the texts.
It dances too close to the problems of misogyny and the patriarchy. I don't like it for that very reason. I'm not saying that it does outright. It just starts to water those gardens. Thich Nhat Hanh for a minute.
Yeah, because if the summer solstice is the highest male festival, then the winter solstice is the highest female one because of the way those correspondences work. That doesn't quite work for me. But as we're sitting here between the two bigger holidays for me, between Beltane and Lunasa, which is the first harvest, our next major holiday is Lunasa. This is that time of tending and taking care and making sure that everything is on track for that harvest, which is why it makes sense to me that a lot of people are doing prosperity magic for this particular holiday. So if that's something you wanted to do, give somebody a coin, and then take that coin and put it on your prosperity altar. Do whatever works best within the tradition that you are a part of. Maybe light a candle on your prosperity altar, or do a ritual that for you has those connotations and meanings.
I find that I'm intrigued with this their prosperity working, and I'm wondering if it should be not only for the individual practitioner to give a coin or several coins out.
And that's a traditional thing that you do on Lunasa. You pay your debt, you pay back any coins that have been off, any gifts that have been given to you, and you give to show your prosperity, and you receive to show that prosperity is coming into you. That's a Lunasa tradition that I'm borrowing there.
My brain wants to take and expand on that. Since reaching the height of that working, we're not dealing in the realm of harvest yet, but we're still building that prosperity and working with the law of returning tide. If one were to, say, pick up a practice where they are seeding, this is still part of that planting, seeding, growing time, right? So working with that planting, growing, seeding, where they're helping to seed out into the general community prosperity. They're not necessarily lending their prosperity, but they're seeding prosperity.
No. So this is not alone.
Yeah, not alone. And the gift itself is just done with that, the law of returning tide, right? The second part of that is watching for what gifts come back that could be placed on the altar. Just because you may live in an area where a lot of people don't practice out, they don't understand. They may just get a coin and be like, okay, or whatever the token is that's used for the symbol of prosperity that the recipient may not understand, or you may not have somebody else in your area practice the same things, so you might not get a coin. But being mindful of any of it, like if a squirrel leaves a little present as a gift, or a bird, or just anything, is just something, just being mindful and watching for that, and then putting that on the altar, just in general, just because I think that would work more with the law of returning tide and open when some.
And this is where when we talk about personal correspondences and stuff, we're doing Chinese food for this feast, for the celebration. Growing up, that's how we knew we were doing good. We would go out for Chinese. When we had some extra money as a kid, we would go out for Chinese. And so there is this prosperity symbolism in my brain between Chinese food and prosperity, because that was the special restaurant when we were celebrating, when we were in a good place. That association has continued throughout my life. When I need to feel like everything's okay, I like to have what I would call very traditional American Chinese food. And it doesn't work well when we do traditional Chinese food, because my associations with what I grew up with, having shrimp and lobster sauce or Hunan chicken or things that you would find at a Chinese American restaurant, because that was the association that I grew up with. Like, we're doing, would you like to go out for Chinese? Let's go out for Chinese. That association is very strong with me. That's something we are doing as a part of our celebration of the holiday. And I highly recommend finding those personal things. I think we spend too much time trying to be traditional with things that are not traditional, where we can have our own personal traditions. Yes, some traditions, if you were practicing a tradition that had a summer solstice ritual, definitely do that and do the things that are associated with that. But coming from the tradition that I'm coming from, our next kind of traditional ritual would be Lammas, the bread feast, and that is associated with Lughnasadh, right?
Yeah.
The harvest has come in. We're getting ready for Thanksgiving. We're heading into that time of being thankful for what we're gathering. For us and the traditions that we practice and are tied into, we have a bit more freedom here. Traditions need to be reborn in every generation. Always feel free to refresh them and find ways to make them meaningful now.
But if you've already spent 20 years building up correspondences and correlations, then by all means, work with it. That's the joy of having that already built in. If you've had it all your life and you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, that's 4 decades of building up those correspondences and the symbolism. You should definitely be working with that if you can, as long as that still has that meaning there. Because it's that personal, it's those relationships again, and that personal relationship and living in right relationship. That's where a lot of the real magic is. That's one of the fun things right now for us is we're exploring and creating it and trying to figure out. The past years, we've had a lot of fun staying up throughout the night and getting to check in on our brothers and sisters across the pond, as we like to say, over in Britain, when the first rays of the sun fall upon Stonehenge, and the Druids are all practicing out there and getting to watch that. And it's fun because for us, it falls in the middle of the night, so it becomes part of our evening vigil to get to watch that and to know that our sunrise turn is coming up in a few more hours. I know one of the things, prosperity tied rituals that I'm looking at playing with this evening is, once again, it's working with the law of returning tide, but it's part of that gratitude. I'm really wanting to work with practicing and playing around with some kind of gratitude ceremony and giving thanks, because that's something that often doesn't get associated with prosperity like it should. Gratitude is so essential when working with prosperity. Just think in your own mind, if you're interacting with somebody who's grateful, you're more inclined to want to give them stuff and help them out because they're so grateful for everything. And it just works on that same wavelength with the universe around us and life. And it's important. It's easy to forget to be grateful. And it's important to take those times to just pause and go, hey, I'm really grateful for having X, Y, and Z. And I'm grateful for that, even if it's just for having the mental wherewithal to be aware of the fact that I need these other things in my life, or that I want these other things in my life. Be grateful to know that, to be able to discern the difference between needing and wanting, even if you don't have a lot, or if your needs and wants are much greater than what you have. Just being grateful for having the mental wherewithal for that can be part of the practice. It's something everybody can do, no matter what you have or what you don't have. You can easily practice gratitude.
One of the things that I am looking forward to is the moon water that we made under the Pride moon, which you can find that ritual over at CreationsPaths.com. If you want to do it, I think you can do that on any full moon or even any new moon. The moon water that we made for that, we put back out to catch those first rays of sun. Orange spice tea with that water to bring in all of that courage, all of that strength. And orange is something that a lot of cultures associate with prosperity, and something that I very much associate with prosperity. That was also how we knew when I was a kid we were doing good, as there would be oranges and citrus in the house, because it was expensive and hard to come by when I was a kid. Knowing that water has been infused with that moonlight and pride and those first rays of the summer sun coming over the hills, knowing that is all there and part of the magic and part of the experience, really is going to add to the experience of it. I'm being very careful in how I word this, because I know not everyone believes in this kind of subtle energy work that I believe in. I don't think that is required for you to either do magic or for magic for. Whether or not it is purely psychological, or whether we are actually dealing with these subtle energies in the environment, remembering all of the things that we put into that ritual for the moon when we set that water out under the full moon for Pride, and all of our intentions in putting the water out to catch the rays of the sunlight. So that's infused with both. The symbolism of that. The Pride water was made under the moon. It's then infused in this kind of mystical coming out ceremony to intentionally collect the first rays of the summer solstice sun. And that symbolism is all there to work on us psychologically, as well as any subtle energetic component that it could have. I think a lot of people rob themselves of the magic they could have in their life simply because they have convinced themselves that there is a subtle energy or any of that kind of direct magic in the world. It doesn't matter one way or the other whether it is a psychological game you're playing or whether or not you are actually calling on these forces. The end result will be the same. It's going to give me and all those who partake that sense of empowerment. It's going to give me and all those who participate that sense of wonder and joy and that courage of all of the queer ancestors that we invoke when we made that moon water, and all of the intentions and prosperity and strength that we invoke when we put it out to bless it with the first rays of the sun on the solstice. Because one could say that it was already blessed with the sun because we left it out all night. So it already did collect the light from one sunrise, but the magic is in the intentionality, whether that's oogie boogie spirit magic or just the psychological intentions that are hitting us. The effect on us psychologically and physically are the same because we know how much our physiology does respond to our psychological states. And that's really what we're trying to do, especially with these holidays. Paganism has been exploding in recent years. I think some of that is with everything that we're doing to the earth, the old gods are crying out and more people are hearing them. But that's me on the oogie boogie side of things that believes in these things as real non-human intelligences operating in the universe. I think the other part of it that has really called a lot of people in is there is a lot more of this DIY nature to paganism than there is to the other more established faiths and practices, where you can have more of a say in how you are practicing, celebrating, and performing these rituals. I just want to invite people of every faith, because I know we have people listening that are not in the pagan side of things and who are not in the Christian side of things. This is a time to intentionally do something that is meaningful for you on a day like today. Setting aside a day, setting aside time, that is honestly what sacred means. Sacred means set aside for specific use. That's what both sacred and holy, what those words come from, is that it's something set aside and it makes it special. It's like when somebody shows up on your birthday and took the time, energy, and effort to give you a gift or throw you a party. That is a holy act because they set aside their own time, their own energy, their own money. And when we allow ourselves to do that, dedicated to these things that we want to have more of in our lives, it has a profound effect on us psychologically and physiologically. And it's so important that we get back to that we get back to this place where we are invoking these energies and these goals and desires into our lives in a very intentional and meaningful way, that we're discussing them with each other, whether that's in a circle, a coven, or grove, or church, an assembly, or just an association of friends. Getting back to a place where we are consciously bringing these things into our lives for the sake of making our lives better. One of the great blessings of the coven we're a part of is that we are all dedicated to making each other's lives just a little bit better, and through that, making our own lives better. One of the members of the coven recently sent packages out to everyone, and they're packages that she was gathering up and was hoping to send around Christmas, but one thing led to another, and so now we're having Christmas in July, depending on how long it takes for the packages to get here. I don't know what's in the package that she sent. I have no idea. It's still in the mail as of the recording of this episode. But I've already received such a gift in seeing her joy, excitement, and just the thrill when she sent the tracking number and the conversations we've had. That gift is so powerful, regardless of whatever's in the box. The box at this point is great. It's that intentionality of taking our meager resources, trying to support one another and make each other's lives better. That's healing in a way that many people either don't have in their lives or that they deny in their lives. I can't help but think of, why am I celebrating the summer solstice even though I don't have a deep connection to it? It is a day for me to do something that our modern capitalistic world does not want me to do, to intentionally think about what could make my life better, my husband's life better, my community's life better, what could bring us that prosperity, that abundance, that joy, that gratitude, what could get us to live better in a more embodied way. That's why I do it.
To also do all of that without necessarily being money based, because that's where it really breaks that hold of capitalism. Prosperity can be anything. And it's so beneficial psychologically. Just take some time and remember that prosperity is so many other things other than just dollars and cents.
I hope this helps you out. that you enjoyed this one. I don't know how enjoyable a lot of our content has been lately because we've been talking about some very serious things, but hopefully you've enjoyed this one. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. How are you celebrating the solstice, whether you're in the south going into the winter solstice or in the northern hemisphere celebrating the summer solstice? I would love to know. If you're listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, or CreationsPaths.com, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they don't notify us, so we won't know. But you can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to CreationsPaths.com, click on chat, and you can leave a message there, and we will see it, and we will be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars, you can pass our way. We offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both, and you can support us using the Cash App hashtag CreationsPaths. Thank you to everybody who does that. We are ever so grateful. Thank you so much. You all really do help us keep the lights on, keep a roof over our head, and food on our table. If we've ever said anything that's helped you out, please share it with others. That helps us out more than you know. And as we're heading out today, Macnanan Maclear, great sailor, Lord of the sea, help us to navigate the many waters that we must navigate in this life. Greet us on the shore and help to guide us to all the places that we should go, and to get there with integrity, with hope, and with everything that we need to have when we arrive. Amen.
Amen.